What's going on, everybody? My name is John Paz. Welcome to episode 22 of Destination Talk.
And I am Harry, and we are coming to you again from Chop Studios, located at 750 Route 34 in Matawan, New Jersey. And thank you again to our show sponsor, the Academy in Garwood, New Jersey. You can reach them at 908-540-6936 to schedule your free class. Today we have a powerful guest who brings intensity, wisdom, and purpose to what he does, Coach Chad Parks. Coach Parks is the head wrestling coach at Shawnee Heights High School in Kansas. He is a certified coach with wrestling mindset, and he has also hosted his own podcast called Coach P's Perspective Podcast. In this episode, we will get into Coach's background, the power of mindset training, his GET philosophy, and what it truly means to build athletes from the inside out. Coach, welcome to the podcast. We thank you for taking the time out of your day to be a part of this. How are you doing today?
Good, man. Hey, thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it. It's a blessing.
We appreciate it very much. So, Coach, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, how you got into the sport of wrestling and in coaching as well?
Yeah, so I live in Kansas, but I grew up in Oklahoma. And, man, I probably started wrestling when I was 3 or 4. So my dad's in the National Hall of Fame, the Oklahoma branch of the National Hall of Fame for coaching wrestling. And I don't even remember when I started. I just was on the mats, I do know that I went to my first wrestling match when I was 2 weeks old. My mom took me, and I kind of been in the sport ever since. So wrestled all the way through high school, wrestled through college, ended up being a college All-American. And then when I was in college, I think I knew before that, but when I was in college, I decided, hey, I think I want to go into coaching when I'm done. And then I was able to go that route. So I've been coaching for 23 years total, and then 20 as the head coach at Shawnee Heights.
Awesome. Can you tell us a little about Shawnee Heights and how you landed there and what the most rewarding part of building that program is for you?
Yeah, so I met my wife when I was in college. She was a college softball player, and I was wrestling. And then we were both in education. We actually met in education classes. Whenever we got done, we were going to be PE teachers. And so people who teach PE don't leave their jobs. So it's hard to find a job in PE a lot of times. We knew like we're going to have to be in a city somewhere where there's multiple schools probably. And she actually grew up in Topeka, went to Shawnee Heights. Her dad was president of the school board, so they have a lot of tradition there. Brother and sister went there as well. I ended up student teaching at Shawnee Heights. And then after I student taught there for 3 years, I coached and taught in a different school district. The head wrestling coach is the guy that I student taught under. So when I was done student teaching for him, we had a great relationship. And kind of out of the blues, right after the state tournament, he had told me previously, hey, whenever I retire, I want you to come in and take over this program. We thought it was going to be a couple more years. And state tournament was over. Very next day, he shoots me a text, do you have your resume ready? I was like, what are you talking about? And then he called me and he said, hey, nobody knows this yet, but I just took a job in Manhattan, Kansas. I'm going to go over there, so get your resume ready to come in here. And so I did, went in, applied for the job. I got the head job, took over all his positions. So middle school PE, had middle school football, and then head of high school wrestling. And, so came in, he had done a great job with the program. We continued to build on it. And then 5 years ago, we started our women's program. So I'm the head women's and men's coach, and both those programs are running strong. So that's how I got connected to Shawnee Heights. It's the community we live in. We have 4 kids. They all go to Shawnee Heights. My oldest is actually graduating on Sunday. So tomorrow's her graduation party. So our first grad.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
So you said you were an All-American in college. Where did you go to school?
Yeah, so I actually went to 3 schools. So right out of high school, I went to Missouri Valley NAIA school. We won a national title when I was there. But the coach who recruited me, who was the head assistant at the time, was leaving. I chose to leave. So I transferred to Labette, which is here in Kansas. And I had a phenomenal coach. Coach Thompson, he's a Hall of Famer as well. And my coach at Missouri Valley is as well. So I've had some really great coaches in my life. But so wrestled there at Labette for 2 years. And then the goal was to wrestle at Labette and then go back to Oklahoma. And I became best friends with my coach's sons at Labette. They're my age. So after I wrestled with those guys for 2 years, we decided we're sticking together. And at that time, Fort Hays State University, a Division II school, was the only 4-year program in Kansas. And so their dad, our coach, encouraged us, hey, let's stay in Kansas and go to the 4-year program and support it. So that's where we ended up going, was Fort Hays. And yeah, so I got to wrestle in those 3 schools, and they were all great schools. But Coach Thompson, my coach at Labette, like I said, great coach, and then his sons, So my best friends to this day, all three programs were excellent, had good coaches, great, and great teammates at all those. And they were all very different kind of programs. But the good thing is now as a coach, I got to learn from those different coaching styles and being around a lot of excellent wrestlers in the process.
So, Coach, can you talk a little bit about your culture, the culture you have at Shawnee Heights, just wrestling, football, kind of everything about that?
Yeah. So, I know for me, I would say it's probably one of the most important things as a coach. And it's something that we really, really focus on in our program. And I'm blessed. I have 6 assistant coaches. 4 of them actually were athletes for me. One of them we competed together in college. And then we just added our first female coach last year. And so she had wrestled at Ottawa University. But and the other thing is with my 7 coaches, all 7 of us were college athletes. 5 of us were college wrestlers, a college football player, college baseball player, which you don't get that at high schools very often, right? So
Right.
it's pretty incredible. We have that level of coaching staff. But man, when I very first started coaching, I think a lot of times you kind of coach how you were coached.
Right.
And I had some great coaches. So I tried to take, hey, what were the things that my dad did that were really well and that he did awesome. My dad's a great storyteller. He's one of the hardest workers I've ever met in my life and kind of got some of that ability, right? So I was able to use those things. My coach at Labette, Coach Thompson, phenomenal relationship. I don't know if I've ever met a better relationship builder than he was. A guy that was able to push you to your limits, but like you wanted to do that for him, right? You want to go to battle for him type of guy. So right away, TCOB was one of our things at Labette, take care of business. So that became a basis for us. And, we just said in everything in life, it made it pretty simple, whether it's on the mats, in the classroom, your personal life, relationships, we're going to take care of business, which means you're going to get in there and you're going to do your absolute best. So that kind of started off, I would say building the culture of the program. Now, I was young and intense, just coming out of college, probably too intense. And I know I came in and was just a million miles an hour, and every practice was a break you kind of practice. And, that was, I guess, I would say Iowa style wrestling back then. 20 years ago is a little bit more of a mindset. And so somehow kids stuck with it, kids liked it, and we were able to just keep building and building the program. Over the years, some of the things, so I want to say things changed. I don't know if they change. It's just like in life, right? You have different seasons of life that you walk in. We had children. I think that helped me become a better coach. And then growth mindset, man. It's one of those things like I study constantly. And I want to study like what are the best coaches doing? And it's something I think pretty early on that I recognized was I don't want to just coach how I was coached. I want to take the good things, the bad things in between, but also I want to coach in my own style, using my own personality. And I remember reading The Mentor Leader by Tony Dungy, who's one of my favorite coaches of all times. And I always say I'm a little Tony Dungy, but I am a wrestler, so I'm also a little Mike Tyson. I have a little bit of both in my personality, right? And so sometimes you get a coach, let's just say in football, maybe their coach yelled a lot, and so they're trying to be a yeller, and that's not their personality. So when I read that book, I just realized like, man, Tony Dungy did it his way, and I felt empowered to be able to coach the way I want to coach, right? So to be able to kind of use those parts of my personality. As I did that, and I just kept studying and progressing, and then realizing I don't want to just learn things within the sport of wrestling. I also want to see like like Chick-fil-A, how do they build the best culture possible, right? So reading the book from their CEO, going in and reading other top business leaders, what principles of success can I take and steal from them and then utilize in our program? So over the years, we were able to do that. And you mentioned GET earlier, the GET, the GET mindset.
Right.
I can talk about that if you want, because that's a big part of our culture.
Yeah,
right
absolutely.
away.
Please go into that.
Yeah. So a few years back, this is something, man, I honestly don't even know exactly where we developed it. And it's funny how things just kind of come about. Like we have a creed that we use. And I remember I was watching the same with my dad. And my dad was like, oh, it'd be cool to have something like that for wrestling. And so I just sat down and wrote that creed, and we used that with like our kids club in middle school and high school, and just has some of our pillars in it, things like TCOB and, leaving it all on the mat, things like that. But this GET mindset, it's something I just thought about, wrote it down, came in, started talking to the kids and developed it. But for us, what it stands for is gratitude, effort, and toughness. And so we tell them, and just, the little mindset shift of like, I don't have to go to practice on Monday. I get to go to practice. I don't have to go to weights. I get to go to weights, right? I don't have to go to work. I get to go to work. and then going in and breaking that down, like making gratitude our most prominent attitude. Um, it's easier said than done, and there's sometimes people think of like, oh man, gratitude is like kind of woo woo, or it's like all rainbows and sunshine, and no, it's not like that. Like looking at real brain research and understanding. Well, I want to even before brain research for me, like I have a deep faith in Christ, and if we look, I mean, it talks about Thanksgiving and gratitude 157 times in the Bible, right? And then if we look at brain research and see that the same areas of your brain that light up if you're in stress or anxiety are the same areas of your brain that light up whenever you're in gratitude. And so the two can't coexist. One will displace or replace the other. So we as a team really, really focus and talk about, man, we have to be intentional about gratitude and being grateful. So teaching them real things like, hey, how do I do it, right? Bookending my day. So starting my day in gratitude. Typically for me, like when I get up in the morning, I have a little routine I do. Then I'm down here in my office and I'm a to-do list guy. So I'm writing out because we're really busy. So writing out my to-do list, flip the page, I write I'm grateful for, and I just start writing down the things I'm grateful for, right? So talk to the kids about verbally expressing gratitude, writing gratitude, and then giving gratitude to others. And then understanding that also when we're looking at the physiology of it, I would just say dose so we can remember it. But whenever you walk in gratitude, your body's releasing dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. And so those are the feel good chemicals, right? Those are the chemicals that you get after a great workout. Some people call like a runner's high. You're literally getting those things, expressing gratitude, and then having the ability to receive gratitude as well. So we have some practices that we do for that. And then at nighttime, out of sight, out of mind. So keep a journal or a notepad or something by your bed. And then I usually tell them just write down 3 things you're grateful for from that day. And then under that, write success of the day. And then write down one thing that you did that day that you consider success. And on good days, that's easy. And on tough days or bad days, sometimes you're like, man, what happened good today? Or like, where was I successful? And you're always able to find something. And it's amazing, like the attitude difference and the relaxation that you're able to have going to bed. So again, sort of bookending your days, and then looking at the effort piece. Like, man, when I ran my podcast, I've been blessed to have some great coaches. And on the podcast, I mean, I was interviewing Olympians and multimillionaires, people in these different areas, right, that have had high levels of success. And the thread that runs throughout all those is effort.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no way around it. Like to be great at wrestling, it's just a hard sport, man. Even cleaning the mats is hard. Everything about wrestling is hard. So it takes great effort. And I believe in efficiency, and don't just do something because it's always been done that way. Find the best way to do it. But you got to be willing to do the work. That's all there is to it. And then toughness, the pieces of that, of course, in our sport, you got to be physically tough, right? Don't be afraid to get hit in the face. So, talk to people about that all the time. Like, hey, you're just not that good looking. It'll be all right, right? Shoot in. Don't be afraid to get in the face. Don't be, afraid to block with your head. But at the same time, like life is going to throw some stuff at us. Don't be afraid to put your head in there. If you have big dreams or goals, like don't be afraid to just jump in there and go for it. And then the other piece of toughness outside like a physical or mental toughness is emotional toughness. And so we really focus on that too, and understanding like, yeah, you could anger is an emotion, fear is an emotion, frustration, but like the greatest and strongest emotion is love. Like leading with love, allowing yourself to love. And love, again, isn't soft, kind of gratitude. Love provides guardrails, right? If somebody is not doing the right thing, I can speak to them in love, like my children, because I want the best for them. So love can be strong. Love can also be a hug or an arm around the shoulder or just listening to somebody, and then not being an island, like allow other people to pour into you. That's part of that whole process too. So for us, I think that's a basis of our culture, and going back to like, hey, let's use get in everything we do. And then let's use that to build relationships like amongst our team, amongst our peers, with the coaching staff, with the parents in our program. And so, the parents are bought in. So as our team walks around the school or the city or tournaments around the state, if people see TCOB or if they see get, like they know, hey, that's Shawnee Heights Wrestling. So again, it's sort of a marketing thing for us as well, because it's just kind of who we are.
So gratitude ties into mindset, and I know you're affiliated with Wrestling Mindset. So can you talk a little bit about how that relationship came about, and then how you tie all that into your team and when you're training them?
Yeah. So I've been stealing stuff from Wrestling Mindset for years. They put a lot of free information out there on their social media and on their website. And so I would read things from and just go, God, dude, that's awesome. Like I'm going to take that in and utilize it with my team. And I think it was 2019-ish, 2018, 2019. I just got a message on social media from one of the Zanettis, and I'd written a book right around the same time, and the book became a bestseller on Amazon and did pretty well in the wrestling world and beyond. But they had seen that, and anyway, so Jeff Zanetti reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you about coming in as a wrestling mindset coach for us. Can we get on the phone?" I said, "Yeah." And we talked and had a lot of the same thoughts and philosophies. And selfishly, I was also like, "Okay, this gives me access to like their program, and I
Right.
can utilize it with my team." And I was able to do that. And one of the amazing things was once I got in there and really studied and learned from them and got familiar with the program, I was like, dude, if I would have had this stuff when I was competing, like, why didn't I have this when I was competing? And then also realizing the value of truly having the program, not just like bits and pieces of the program. So that's how I got started. And then over the years, um, they some people for mindset like literally go and work with clubs and go to tournaments and sort of do sales and those type of things. I just strictly coach. And so they say they'll text me or call me, "Hey coach, we have this MMA fighter in New York," or "We have this." So for me, wrestling, MMA, and jiu-jitsu are the areas that I mostly cover. And so they'll provide athletes for me, and then I do one-on-one training with those athletes. And so typically once a week we're getting on Zoom, or we're getting on just a FaceTime, in which we utilize a lot because I want to be able to look them in the eyes. I want to be able to talk to them directly, read their emotions, and then we go through the wrestling mindset curriculum. So I have athletes all around the nation, East Coast to West Coast, different age levels, high school, adults, and it's been a blessing getting to do that. Again, I'm a relationship builder, so when you're getting to work with somebody one on one and really like getting vulnerable and people are like, "Hey, like here's an area I'm struggling or an area I need to grow in." And I want to make sure I put that in there too. People don't just do mindset because they're struggling. Sometimes people just say, "Hey, I just want to get better, man. Like I'm doing everything I can." Right. I I had a really high level jujitsu athlete from New York, and I was working with him for a number of years. He owns a big academy up there, and I remember we were talking and he was like, he goes, "Hey, I like everybody, I struggle with nerves and anxiety before I compete." He goes, "But really, I just I have the best trainers for weightlifting. I have great jujitsu coaches supporting me. I'm trying to pour in other people. Like I want to cover my bases, right? I want to be really good at everything I'm doing." And I realized, why am I not doing mindset training? So it's not just that you have a deficit somewhere. Sometimes that's it, but also sometimes you just want to be great, right? And so it's just like, why would people go and do ice baths or saunas or all the little things that they're doing for rest and recovery? You're just trying to get all the edges that you can to go out and compete and be the best version of yourself. So that's how we got started. Mindset. I still work, for wrestling mindset. It's something I really enjoy doing, and I enjoy the relationship part, and then I enjoy just watching people grow. And it kind of ties back in with like any kind of coaching. For me, my favorite definition of a coach is someone who takes a person from where they currently are to where they want or need to go, right? Where they want to go, that's their desired outcomes or their goals. Sometimes they don't know that's where they need to go. And so that's my job as a coach, is to guide them both those, right? Where they want to go and also where they need to go. And so I'm able to do that through wrestling mindset.
So, Coach, what are some of the most common mindset challenges you see in high school wrestlers today?
I would say two that come to mind easily, and they probably tie together, but one is dealing with nerves, right? And I
Mhm.
tell the kids all the time, like, man, I probably wrestled close to 1,000 matches in my life, and I got nervous every single one of them. There wasn't a time I competed I didn't get nervous. Now you learn to do it, to view it differently, or to um, allow it to motivate you and not freeze you, right? But that's probably the number one thing, is just like, okay, hey, I know I have the ability. I see I have the ability in practice. I know how I compete there. And then I get in a real match, and I'm going to use air quotations, but in a big match, maybe the semis or the finals, or a tournament in their mind they consider to be a big tournament, and they're not the same wrestler. They're wrestling not to get beat instead of wrestling to win. And there's a big difference there. So that's
Mhm.
probably, I would say, the number one thing is just kids dealing with the anxiety and pressure. Um, you know, I'm much old, and I always tell kids, "Hey, man, I was raised in the 1900s, right? Like I'm an old dude now." But even though there was a lot of pressure then, for me, there was a lot of pressure having a dad that was a really high level coach. And so that was a lot of pressure for me. But the pressure they have now, when like we have social media and we have flow wrestling and YouTube, and dude, you get spladled now, and like you could be a highlight reel for everybody else. And your parents, they love you, but they're also throwing you on social media 24/7, and all those things are different levels of pressure, which adds the anxiety. And how do we deal with that? So I would say that's number one. And then number two is what I would just categorize as others, worrying about letting other people down. And those two often tie together, right? But I don't want to let down mom and dad. I don't want to let down my coaches. I don't want to let down my teammates. So it's like, how do we deal with those? And so those are probably the top two areas that whenever an athlete comes to me, or whenever I'm working with a team, the coach says, hey, coach, here's where we're struggling, is exactly those things.
For coaches out there that are unfamiliar with mindset training or just starting to hear about it, how would you advise them to take the next steps to get involved with that type of training with their athletes and teams?
Yeah, I'll promote Rest and Mindset because that's who I work for, right? So I'm a little biased there. There are a lot of other great mindset coaches out there, and there are other programs and good mindset coaches. But the one I'm most familiar with is Rest on Mindset. So I would say, go to like just Rest on Mindset's website. If you Google Rest on Mindset, you're going to find their website. You can go on YouTube. There's tons of information on, they have a great site. They give away a lot of stuff, Rest on Mindset does, which is awesome, right? But like I said earlier, like you're only getting bits and pieces. It's not the same as whenever you're actually going through a curriculum that's like 265 pages long.
Right.
And you have a mindset coach that understands it, that can walk through. But get on, do a little research. And then if it's something you're interested in, shoot an email to Wrestling Mindset. And then one of the things that they do that I really like, whether it's a parent that's listening to this or a coach that's listening to this, we have a lot of coaches, but they don't just throw you with any coach. Like you'll go in, you'll fill out a questionnaire, and you'll say, hey, here's what I'm looking for. I want a younger coach, or I want an older coach, or I want a coach that can attach these lessons to other life lessons. Yes, I want spirituality or religion to be a part of this, or no, I don't. And then they will look through the coaches and say like, hey, here's a coach I think will be the best fit for this kid or the best fit for this program. Right. So there are times that Rest of Mindset will get a hold of me and say, hey, there's a coach we want you to work with, or there's an athlete and I think that you'll be the best fit because of, and then they'll kind of say what some of their needs are in their background. And that'll align with maybe some of my thought processes or my background too. And if I were to start working with them, we weren't a match, either they could ask, or I would even just say like, hey, I don't think this is a great match. That rarely ever happens, but we want to make sure that we get the kid or the team lined up with the right people. So that's what I would say. Get on there and do that and explore it. And you'll see a lot of great testimonials, and you'll see the high level athletes that are also utilizing mindset. And again, there's other great companies out there, not just Wrestling Mindset.
Right.
So I don't say like we're the end all be all, but I do think we do a pretty good job.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of touched on how you said you have a podcast, Coach P's Perspective podcast. Can you talk a little bit about what led to starting that and what was the heart behind that for the show?
Yeah, COVID. So I'd written the book and I get to do a lot of speaking, get to do a lot of keynote speaking, public speaking, and working with teams and things like that. And so it was kind of funny because these two tie in. But going back to like writing the book, I was speaking and just in some various leadership roles, and had people say, "Hey, you should write a blog about some of this stuff." This is, I don't know, 2012, 13, 14, somewhere in there. And I'm like, dude, I don't even read blogs. Like I read a lot, but not blogs. And then eventually just kind of listened and started writing a blog, and it did very well. And then that led to eventually writing the book, which led to more speaking opportunities. And then podcasts began to get fairly large, and popular. And then people are like, hey, dude, you should do a podcast. And like, I do not have the time. We have 4 children, and at that time, I was still coaching football and wrestling and involved, with Wrestling Mindset. I'm like, I do not have time. And then I did, right? So whenever we were all locked down, and I was like, okay, I literally have no excuse now to not do this. And have a good buddy of mine who used to do a podcast and understood all the technological side of it. And I'm pretty decent with technology, but I'd never done it before, right? You don't know what you don't know. And said, hey, dude, can you walk me through this? And so he got on, walked me through it, and just started lining up guests. And, I know probably kind of like you guys, I made a list. Like I went through and I said, hey, man, here's a lot of people that I know. And, the wrestling world, we're a fairly small fraternity. And so here are people that I know, and I want to get them. And here are some business people that I know, and some people that are just high level in various areas. And I kind of made, I made like a dream list too. Here's some people I don't know. I'm just going to reach out to them through social media. I'm going to drop into their Instagram and send them messages, and they'll have to wait because they don't even follow me, right? So they'll have to look at the requests and things like that. So was able to, thankfully, And the majority of them are online, like what we're doing. I mean, sometimes we're blessed that you have somebody in your area and you can have them in-house. That have people all around the country, so we're able to utilize technology and get on. And all of a sudden, it was just like I started doing it, and they were going really well. I'm posting them online, and then I was like, man, I'm gonna do this twice a week, and did that for a while. And then as life began to kind of go back to normal and get busier again, like, okay, I'm going to cut it back to once a week. But I think the heart behind it was kind of the same as like writing a book. I've got to meet so many awesome people and learn so many awesome, just incredible lessons from them. I don't want to just know those lessons. I want other people to know those lessons, right? I want to be able to put those out into the world. That's a legacy for the person I learned it from. And let's share those things. And I'm a podcast listener. I love listening to podcasts, right? So getting on and hearing you guys do your interviews. I mean, if I'm driving in my car or if I'm working around the house or whatever, to me, there aren't many things better than a free education. And when I, hosting a podcast, you get a free education as well.
Right.
And I know like almost every single time I would get off of a podcast, I'd be like, dude, like I got to work out now or something. I'm pumped. Like I'm excited, man. Like,
and we kind of feel that way too, don't we?
Yeah. It gives you like different, like little motivation sometimes too, and any conversation you go through. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's just people are building into you, you're building into them. And I'm always like, man, if I can listen to a podcast and take away just like one little nugget that just sticks with me, and now I can utilize that as a dad or a husband or a coach or wherever in life, like that's a win. And we're blessed to live in a time where we just have so much education. And I'm going to say this as a longtime teacher and as a coach's kid, right? Because I taught for 20 years. I think the ultimate purpose of education is to learn how to learn. Some people would be like, no, like I want you to learn my math class. Like ultimately it's to learn how to learn.
Right.
And once you're an adult and you're out of school, you've graduated college and you're out, working or whatever, why wouldn't you want to continue to grow and to learn and just want to be the best version of yourself? You have people in your life, hopefully, that are like iron sharpens iron people, right? Like, but I also want to have this like iron sharpens iron inner circle. And then I can easily have like a next circle and sort of like an outer circle through the books I'm reading, the podcasts I'm listening to, and the audiobooks so I can be educated by people that I don't even know at all. So for me, I was like, if I can take these people, interview them, get into their brains, and then we can share that with others, they are now getting to grow their mindset. We're now all being educated by this person. And so that was, I think, for me, the heart behind the podcast. One of the things I love about hosting a podcast and just listening to podcasts and what we get to do in this world.
Mm-hmm.
Was there an episode or a guest that stood out to you over those many podcasts that you put out there?
Yeah, there's a lot of them, man. I mean, got to have some incredible athletes and coaches on. I would say Tom Ryan, that was really cool having him on. Ohio State's coach, we got to have some really good conversation. But out of all the podcasts, and this is a person that was on my wish list. When I kind of wrote out the dream list, I was like, I do not have a way to connect with this person, and I think just in the world in general, there's like the 5 degrees of separation type thing, but it's amazing how many, like you can just meet. I guarantee you, we could get off of this podcast and we could sit and talk about our lives and we'll know so many people in common.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is like being in the wrestling world that's going to happen, but you can meet the most random people and end up knowing some of the same people, right? But I felt like, man, I literally don't have a connection with this guy. His name is Bob Bodine. So I read a couple of his books. The Power of Who is one of those, which is literally about that, like how you're going to end up having connections with people. And then he has another book called Two Chairs. I got to actually go to a leadership conference, sit in, listen to Bob Bodine speak in person. He doesn't know me from anybody. And just so we know a little who he is, he's probably one of the most famous people that nobody knows. So he has Eastman and Bodine. He is, some people would say like a headhunter. Bob is one of the people that takes people and put them in the right situation. He's the guy that puts Sanders in Colorado, right? He is the guy who, when Alabama needs a new head coach, or Major League Baseball needs a new commissioner, because he literally put the commissioner there, he's the guy they come to and say, hey, Bob, we need this. So it mostly works in the sports world. We need to have somebody big time to come in and fill this role. and he goes and finds the right person and gets them the interview and kind of sets them in that seat, right? If it's not the right person, he'll go and find the next one. So he has put so many incredible people in these places. Now, saying all that, after reading his book, after hearing him talk, I'm like, this man has more wisdom than almost anybody I've ever met. So he's one of the guys that I followed him on Instagram. He didn't even have a huge social media following. Like I said, probably one of the most famous people that people don't know. But I shoot him a message on Instagram, and then a couple days later, I get a response. One of the things I even forgot. I get on. I'm like, oh dang, are you serious? Like Bob got back with me, and he said, hey, let's get on the phone. We got on the phone and we're talking, and he said, I have a lot of people ask me to be on podcasts or to come do interviews, and he was like, honestly, I don't do a lot of them unless I really know the people. And he was like, but for some reason, I feel like I should be on this one. And we got on. We talked for probably 30 minutes before we started recording. The dude just dropped knowledge. I'm talking, I don't know if it was 45 minutes or an hour or whatever, just dropped knowledge on the podcast. We get done, and then he just poured into me for probably another 45 minutes. Like we were no longer recording, we're just talking. And if you have a conversation with Bob Bodine, you literally will have to go work out or go run afterward. Like he is probably the most motivational human being I've ever met. And I got off there. And to this day, we still text. He'll just send me a random text saying, thinking about you, love you, brother, like out of nowhere, right? He's that kind of guy that's just going to pour into you. Before we were wrestling in the state tournament this year, my girls team was really, really good. And coach gets nervous too, right? And I'm using my own mindset stuff, but I remember, and he's a strong follower of Christ. And I just shoot him a message like, hey, Bob, I'm like stressed out, man. It's like the week before state and I'm stressed out. And he shoots me over, like actually called me, but I was in the middle of doing something else, and he gives me like the best voice message ever and a couple of texts. So I would say that's probably one of the best interviews that I was ever able to do and then share with other people. And just, man, if you go follow anything he does, and then I highly suggest if people are, if you like to read books, The Power of Who and Two Chairs, those are two transformational books from Bob Bodine.
I do like to read, so I'm gonna have to check those out. For
Harry's
sure.
a big reader.
Yeah, I probably read. Well, I don't think there's ever reading too much, but sometimes I think I do need to take a break once in a while.
So, Coach,
Yeah.
what is next for you? Whether it's with Shawnee Heights, your podcast, what is next for you in your life?
Yeah, so I said a few minutes ago, I was a teacher for 23 years, 19 years at Shawnee Heights. And then 2 years ago, I transitioned out of teaching. So thankfully, I still get to coach, but I work for Fellowship of Christian Athletes full time now. And so that's something we had talked about. I'd actually talked with the FCA wrestling branch a couple times over the years, and then regular FCA, which is dealing with all sports. And here in the Midwest, they had a policy: if you worked for FCA, you couldn't coach as well. They wanted you to be full-time FCA. And for me, that was sort of a deal breaker, because I feel like that is actually kind of part of my ministry. We had 106 kids on our wrestling team this year, and it's a big thing for us, right? It's a big part of my life and a great passion and a gift that I feel like God's given me the ability to do. So I was like, nah, we're out. And then 2 years ago, they changed their stance on that. The person who's the director of FCA in Kansas came to me and said, we'd love to have you come on. We began talking about it. And then my wife and I both thought this could be a very good fit. I immediately texted my principal and my athletic director and just said, hey, I would love to have a meeting with you guys. I have a job opportunity outside of teaching, but I still want to coach. Can we have a meeting? And then our principal, who's an incredible guy, also a strong Christian man, texted me back and said, what is it, coach? And I said, FCA. And he said, do it. We have several other, what we call in Kansas, rural teen coaches. So people that aren't school teachers that are still head coaches. And so I was able to do both roles. That's been a major blessing for me. And so that's something that I spend a lot of time getting FCA huddles in schools. I no longer coach football, but Washburn University is a local Division II school here in town. And I'm a leadership and character coach for their football team now. So travel with them. I'm at their practices. I'm on their sidelines. Get to do a lot with their players. And we have what we call an all sport FCA, which is college athletes. I was about to say kids, but they're not kids. I guess young adults from every sport that comes to that weekly. So yeah, so I spend a lot of time doing that. This summer we'll put on 4 FCA wrestling camps, and then all summer long, we'll lift and wrestle 4 days a week with my team, and then we'll do like a big team camp for our team as well. So yeah, summer's kind of dedicated to wrestling camps, FCA work, and then spending time with my family. So got the 4 kiddos. Like I mentioned earlier, my daughter is about to graduate. She'll go to K-State next year. My wife is a high school volleyball coach. So she'll do volleyball training stuff all summer, and then she'll coach. And then the kids, they're involved in all kinds of sports. And so we're either coaching or we're just driving kids everywhere, right? So I don't get paid, man, but I'm an Uber. So
Yeah,
I'm
busy.
driving
you're a free Uber driver for sure.
absolutely.
Coach, if people wanted to connect with you or just follow some of your work, and actually you've mentioned your book a few times, so please tell us what the title of that is, but where can they find you?
Yeah, so everything is Coach Chad Parks. And on Facebook, just Chad Parks. And then Instagram, that's the other platform I utilize, is Coach Chad Parks. Not a Twitter guy. We do have one, or X, I guess it is. We do have one for our wrestling program because want to try to make sure that you're promoting your program.
Right.
TCOB Wrestling is that. But for me personally, Coach Chad Parks, and then CoachChadParks.com. That's where you can go and you can find all the episodes of the podcast on there. And then the book is called Game Changing Moves. The subtitle is Life Lessons from the Locker Room and Beyond. And, being able to, growing up with a dad who was a great football coach and a great wrestling coach, I was literally in the locker rooms. I was watching film as a little kid. I was out on the football field as a ball boy, or I was in the wrestling room, wrestling myself, going through our youth program, or I was literally in there just wrestling his middle school and high school kids, even when I was a little kid, all the way through. So got to learn a lot from that. And then the book is, I would say, along some of the same lines as I talked about with the podcast. Man, I just have been blessed with a number of great wrestling coaches and football coaches. And growing up too, man, I mean, hard work is just part of our family and what we did. So when I was a senior in high school, I had 30 yards I was mowing. And, I'd get out of football practice and go cut grass all the way through high school. And in the summertime, we're cutting grass. Like other people, they would go to practice for a workout. Like that was me getting away from work. Like I got to go to baseball practice. I got to go to wrestling practice. And I had a great private coach growing up. And he had a jiu-jitsu and a wrestling background and a judo background. And so he was able to kind of utilize various forms of grappling with me growing up. And so I'd get to, my break was get done mowing yards or painting houses and go get cleaned up real quick and then go to wrestling practice with Coach Winton was named the coach. But the book has lessons from all those things that are in there. You cut grass for an elderly woman who's 80 years old. She's known, she knows a lot about life, man. I had some of those people I mowed for. And so get done mowing and sit on the front porch and have a soda pop and just talking for an hour with somebody after you mow. There's a lot of life lessons you can learn there. And so all those things are in the book. And I also think those type of things have allowed me to be a better coach as well.
Awesome. Coach, one final question for you. What does the word destination mean to you personally as a coach and for your athletes?
Destination?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, immediately what comes into my head is where we're wanting to go, right? So we want to have like some sort of destination. We want to have some direction that we're wanting to go. So that's what comes to my head immediately, which I think ties back in with my favorite definition of a coach, right? Helping somebody to get to where they want or they need to go. I want to be able to help somebody get to that destination. And that might be like walking side by side with them as a coach, right? And I'm not out front leading them. I'm not behind pushing. Like I'm literally going through the journey with them in the process. And then as we're both getting to go through the journey, I'm getting to guide them. But man, I think as coaches too, like we learn a ton from our athletes. So any sort of destination I'm getting to go through in my life, whether, maybe that's something I feel like God is sending me in a certain direction, or I'm getting to walk with my wife and children, or I'm getting to go on that with my athletes. I want to be moving in the right direction. I want to be headed to the right destination, but I want to make sure I'm doing that with people, man. That I'm walking shoulder to shoulder with other people and getting to experience the life and the journey with them.
That's a big reason why we started this podcast, having the destination talk,
Right.
Hearing everyone's journey, because everyone has a different journey and everyone has a different destination. So, no, that's, again, a big reason why we started this.
Yeah, but some very interesting stories, and you had mentioned those little nuggets, and for us too, it's just we're learning as we go through this process every day too.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Well, Coach, we do want to thank you again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be a part of our podcast, Destination Talk, and we wish you all the best and continued success. And once again, congratulations to your daughter who's graduating this weekend. And with that being said, that's a wrap on episode 22 of Destination Talk with Paz and Harry. Until we see you again.